For Network Africa, the last surviving anti-apartheid activist convicted with Nelson Mandela at South Africa's Rivonia trial, Andrew Mlengeni, dies at the age of 95. Citizens in Libya concerned over escalating tensions in the country. Plus, Ethiopia says the first-year target for filling the controversial mega dam on the River Nile has been reached. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm LAYO, ADEGOKE. Andrew Mlengeni, the last surviving anti-apartheid activist convicted with Nelson Mandela at South Africa's infamous Rivonia trial, has died at the age of 95. Mr. Mlengeni died after being admitted to a military hospital in Pretoria because of an abdominal complaint. President Cyril Ramaphosa says his death signifies the end of a generational history and places our future squarely in our hands. According to Mr. Mlengeni's 2017 biography, The Backroom Boy, Mandela selected him to join 5 other men in the first group of South African anti-apartheid activists to be sent to China for training. This Rivonia trial was considered to have brought Nelson Mandela to global attention. The trial, lasting from October 1963 to June 1964, is widely considered to have been a pivotal point in the fight against the white minority government in South Africa and brought Mandela to the world stage. Let's move now to the politics in Uganda. The opposition member of parliament, Robert Kyagulanyi, who's popularly known as Bobi Wine, has launched his National Unity Platform party ahead of next year's general elections. Bobi Wine said the party will be a political wing of his People Power movement as he intends to run for the presidency next year. The party symbol is a red and white umbrella. The East African nation is set to hold general elections in January 2021, when President Yoweri Museveni is expected to seek a 6th term in office, because on Tuesday he picked up his nomination form from the ruling party. Uganda's Electoral Commission had banned campaigns because of the coronavirus pandemic. Opposition figures have, however, criticized the ban, saying it gives an unfair advantage to the ruling party, whose members own media outlets. Well, we have Sarah Biyomumaisho, a Ugandan journalist, joining us now from Kampala for more on this story. Hello, Sarah. Thank you for speaking to us on Network Africa. Let me begin by asking you, how are citizens reacting, first of all, to President Museveni seeking nomination in his ruling party for him to run again in next year's election? What has been the reaction to this? All right, we'll try and reconnect back with Sarah. But in the meantime, let's move on to the crisis in Libya. A sharp military escalation in the country that could possibly lead to the intervention of the Egyptian armed forces is igniting debate among the citizens of both countries. On Monday, Egypt's parliament gave President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi the green light for possible military intervention in Libya by approving the deployment of armed forces abroad to fight terrorist groups and militias.
In Libya's Misrata, citizens voiced concern over Egypt's possible intervention, with some considering it a direct threat to the country's sovereignty.
The
Libyan state has its own sovereignty. When you ask someone to enter Libya, it's definitely a decision that we consider to be very wrong at all levels. You should protect your own borders as you fear for the smuggling of weapons. But to let someone intervene in Libya is a crime, and those responsible for it should be held accountable.
A sharp military escalation in Libya, where fighters led by Eastern Commander Khalifa Haftar have been battling the forces of the internationally recognized government, could risk igniting a direct conflict among the foreign powers that have poured in weapons and fighters in violation of an arms embargo. Egyptian Member of Parliament Mohammed Abu Hamid said on Tuesday that the possible intervention of the Egyptian armed forces was essential to protect the country's national security.
Yesterday, when we approved the decision, the message was clear. Our approval is a call for peace and not a call for war. The Egyptian forces will not intervene unless the existence of foreign powers continues in Libya, which crosses the red line that the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi clarified, and that they continue their aggression against the Libyan people. This is when the Egyptian state will use its rights to defend its national security first, and second, its rights to support a neighboring Arab country and a member of the Arab League.
President al-Sisi warned last week that Egypt will not stand idle if there was a threat to national security in Egypt and its western neighbor, Libya. Egypt, alongside the United Arab Emirates and Russia, backs Haftar, who abandoned an offensive on the capital last month after Turkey stepped up support for Tripoli. The eastern-based Libyan parliament allied to Haftar asked Cairo this month to intervene militarily to counter Turkey, and its president welcomed Egypt's move on Monday.
Well, joining us now is Mr. Chukwuemeka Eze, lecturer at the Faculty of Law, Nasarawa State University, to speak more on the situation in Libya. Thank you so much, Mr. Chukwuemeka, for joining us on the program. Now, late on Monday, Egyptian Parliament voted to authorize the deployment of its military to Libya. What's the implication of this latest development in the Libyan crisis?
This is certainly an escalation of the war in Libya. Turkey has intervened and Egypt wants to intervene. So the implication is that the Middle East will be on fire soon, because with the conglomeration of forces of Turkey, Egypt, Russia, United Arab Emirates, and possibly the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC members, and some other Arab countries, definitely that will be a conflagration that may lead to either the bifurcation of Libya or a solution to the problem we are having right now.
But what really is the solution to this crisis? Libya has been beset by chaos since NATO-backed forces, overthrew Gaddafi in 2011. The capital, Tripoli, has been a scene of fighting between rival forces. What really is the solution to this crisis?
The United Nations Security Council can invoke its powers under Chapter 7 of the United Nations Charter to provide a solution to it, but it is not as simple as that, because Russia is involved, and if things doesn't go its way, it can veto it. Besides, France has an interest in Libya. Rome, that's Italy, has an interest in Libya. Egypt has an interest in Libya. So the solution is perfect. It's not as simple as that. Since 2011, they've been negotiating. And this is 2020. For 9 years, they have not found the solution. The solution will come one day, provided the United Nations Security Council will be ready to intervene. But it's not as simple as we look at it. Many forces have committed so much. Turkey wants to expand its relations in the Middle East. The Qatar question, the Qatar problem is still there. And with the expansive behavior of Turkey, I don't see Turkey going back. So it is too late. Egypt would have taken this step in December when Turkey announced that it was intervening in Libya. Egypt would have done its own announcement and checkmated Turkey. But they waited until the GNA, the recognized United Nations government in Libya, wants to invade Sirte. That is when Egypt wants to intervene. They waited too long. They ought to have acted before now. But basically, the solution is not as simple as we may look at it. It will take some years before we overcome the problem of the calamity in Libya.
Indeed, and I'm actually glad that you mentioned, each rival's ally, all of them claim to be helping Libya. Considering the situation in the country right now, should these external powers, be held responsible and be compelled to help rebuild Libya?
Yes, they have to be held responsible because the oil in Libya seems to be the product of attraction for these foreign powers. Turkey wants to get a bite at the cherry. France, from reports, is already having a bite at the cherry. And Italy. Italy is the country, or was the country, that colonized Libya. So, and Russia, though Russia is not intervening at governmental level, but the Wagner group, the mercenary group that has been hired by the United Arab Emirates reportedly, is from Russia. And so Russia has an interest there. So they should come together. Instead of destroying Libya, they should rebuild Libya. But they've committed so much in the war. They are selling ammunition to the various factions, and they are getting oil. And any power that superintends at the end of the day will get more and more oil. And like Turkey wants to control movement, not only of getting oil, but even the expanse of Libyan sea coast. So if it has authority over the expanse of the Libyan sea coast, the implication is that it will be able to checkmate such other countries like Syria, Israel, Egypt, all those countries around Libya that are close to Libya, whether around or not, Tunisia. So the major power in that area will become Turkey. So I don't see Turkey having taken a step in this direction and seeing victory on the horizon going backwards, unless the United Nations Security Council intervenes immediately. That is the only way to quickly resolve this matter. They are not going to rebuild Libya. None of them is interested in rebuilding Libya. Even if you recommend it, it will not come to pass.
All right, Mr. Chukwuemeka Eze, thank you so much for your thoughts on this. Mr. Chukwuemeka Eze is the lecturer at the Faculty of Law, Nasarawa State University. Thank you so much. Well, Ethiopia says the first-year targets for filling the controversial mega dam on the River Nile has been reached. This latest development would allow the first set of turbines to be tested. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's announcement comes as Ethiopia, Egypt and Sudan agreed to resume talks over the dam following a virtual summit. Now, the project has been a source of huge diplomatic tension since its construction began in Ethiopia in 2011, with the country seeing the hydroelectric project as crucial for its economic growth and vital source of energy. But Egypt and Sudan, which are downstream, fear the $4 billion dam will greatly reduce their access to water. Years of fraught negotiations have failed to reach a consensus on how and when to fill the reservoir and how much water it should release. We kick off our coronavirus coverage in South Africa, where police are investigating the hijacking of a lorry that was carrying COVID-19 samples in the city of Port Elizabeth. Public broadcaster SABC reports that the lorry was hijacked while parked outside a clinic on Monday and abandoned shortly after. The samples, which were contained in cooler boxes filled with ice, are said to be missing. Now, health authorities have warned the hijackers and the public not to touch the samples because they are potentially highly infectious, as they investigate the number of samples stolen before determining how many people to retest. Some 2.5 million coronavirus tests have been conducted in South Africa so far, and the country has the highest number of confirmed cases on the continent. Still to come on the program. Ethiopian domestic workers left in the streets of Lebanon are returning home as COVID-19 hits badly. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. We're still in South Africa, where restaurant owners and workers in the tourist areas, including Cape Town, are holding peaceful protests against the government's reimposed curfew and a ban on sale of alcoholic drinks. Pictures and videos from Stellenbosch town in the Western Cape province show them holding banners warning of job losses if the government does not reverse the restrictions. Here's more details from our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia.
As they had threatened a few days ago, on the menu today were empty dining seats on the streets and placard-carrying workers in the restaurants and associated businesses.
I think as an industry we employ a lot of people, and we obviously are on our knees right now. So we're asking our amazing government to please stand up to the plate, step up to the plate. Our staff haven't received UIF, we've had very little help, and we're just hoping that we'll be taken seriously this time and we get back to business.
It's been very bad. I mean, the constituency that I represent, which is taverns, is made up of 34,500 taverns across the country. And this ban on liquor is actually affecting their livelihoods. And we're worried that more than 50% of our taverns will not be able to operate once the ban has been uplifted.
Apart from the owners, for the workers too, it's been rough these past weeks, especially with the renewed ban in the sale of alcohol and curfew.
Well, we've had no income since March. We've had no help from the government. There's been no UIF payments. So yeah, we've just been battling.
We need extended working hours. We need the unbanning of alcohol, the reduction of this curfew at night.
Most of the people, they're scared to come in and sit. So we're now having like a few tables.
I mean, it have been so hard, especially in the, us as waiters.
The National Liquor Traders Council, the Liquor Traders Association of South Africa, Business Leadership South Africa, and the Restaurant Association of South Africa are leading this protest. And they got the ear of government as the Minister for Tourism, Mameloko Kubayi Ngubane, came by to receive their memorandum of demands.
I will definitely take both of this back to my colleague, Minister Dlamini Zuma, but also to the President. We did arrange earlier on in July. Oh, this is July, June. We did arrange earlier on that the President did meet with the sector. We did present together with the sector the issues. We continue as the department to raise the issues that affect the sector.
Whilst we appreciate and afford the opportunity for her to talk to us today, we certainly need to talk to President Ramaphosa, and we need to talk to Minister Patel and Minister of Kokta to enable us to be able to present the favourable solutions that we've got in lifting the liquor ban, 1, lifting the curfew, 2, talking about the interventions with the financial institutions by making it affordable for us to lend and find cash flow. At this stage, the banks have red flagged us as being high risk, so we cannot continue to trade without income. We also need the UIF to dedicate people to our industry to be able to pay out our UIF payments within 48 hours. We've asked for TERS to be extended, which has been done yesterday, so we certainly are appreciative of that.
And so engagements continue, hopefully with all sides at the table, with the expectation that the sector will sheath their swords and cease for now. The prayer for all is that COVID-19 will be a thing of the past soon enough, and life will get back to normal again. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
Move to neighboring Zimbabwe, where President Emmerson Mnangagwa has ordered security forces to enforce a dusk-to-dawn curfew from Wednesday. He said this was necessary to bring under control the coronavirus outbreak, which has killed 26 people and infected nearly 2,000 others in the country. Citizens are being urged to stay at home, except when shopping for essential food supplies or seeking health services. Opposition groups say the government was using the curfew to disrupt a series of planned demonstrations against state corruption and mismanagement. Well, the economic crisis in Lebanon, worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic, has led to many Ethiopian migrant domestic workers being fired and abandoned outside the country's consulate in Beirut. Around 650 women have returned to Ethiopia, but many more remain stranded in Lebanon. Ethiopian mother Alemet Sahen Nasir is one of them. She went to Lebanon dreaming that her maid's job would let her earn money to make a better life for her young son, but she was fired when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, leaving her with nothing.
Ethiopian mother Alamtsihe Nasser is back home with her family in Addis Ababa. She went to Lebanon dreaming her maid's job will help make a better life for her 6-year-old young son, Christian. He was 2 the last time she saw him. She was fired when the pandemic and financial crisis hit Lebanon and left on the curb outside the Ethiopian consulate in a suburb of Beirut. One of the hundreds of women abandoned by employers without the means to get home. Lebanese labor laws also offers little protection for migrant workers.
They just take them out and dump them on the streets with their belongings. I know women that have been raped, and I know some who were bitten by snakes while on the streets. The problems they face are enormous. Even right now, there are many women on the streets waiting for someone to come to their rescue.
In late May, Alamtsihe was one of around 650 women who returned to Ethiopia on a flight organized by Ethiopian authorities and the United Nations International Organization for Migration, IOM. Maureen Acheng, IOM's chief of mission in Ethiopia, said that women were still keen to migrate despite hearing horror stories.
Unfortunately, from our experience as IOM, we also know that sometimes the levels of desperation are such that even when people know the dangers of irregular migration, they still choose to undertake these perilous journeys in the hope that they will succeed where others have failed. So yes, the dangers are for the most part well known, but clearly are not always a sufficient deterrent.
Lebanese labor laws offers little protection for migrant workers, but with little prospects of employment in Ethiopia, Nasser says she may not have a choice but to seek work abroad.
And that's where we end Network Africa today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm LAYO ADEGOKE.